I don't want to speak for Calvin Ridley. Only he knows. But if you're going to predict in terms of the hierarchy of the values that he has right now in terms of going into a new contract, of what he wants, where are you putting money? Where are you putting quarterback? And where are you putting the opportunity to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's a good call.
I mean, you know him much better than I do.
Yeah, and listen, Ridley's an honest guy, but Ridley said two things in his post-game, or not post-game presser, but his cleaning out the locker presser on that Monday, and he was, I think, pretty honest with people. He's like, yeah, I don't want to go learn a new system. That's what Steve's referencing there. But I don't want to go learn a new system. I think we can get better. I like it here. I like the offense. I can be better. We can be better. I think year two will give us that. Like, but I also need to get paid. Like, he said it, and he didn't hide anything. So it's a business, and we know that. And the bottom line is the Jags don't want to give up a second-round pick. I don't blame them. I get that idea of it, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. I doubt that they are going to work this out the way they think they can. Maybe they pull off the miracle and get to keep him and their third-round pick. That would be amazing. And then, I'll admit I'm a little bit wrong on that, and obviously familiarity plays out. If it's $16 million or $18 million, if it's Florida, no state income tax versus New York, maybe some of these things then come into play, and fit does come into play. Listen, he's from Florida. He likes the Southeast. Played at Alabama, played in Atlanta. Like, maybe he is limiting his. Maybe that does benefit the Jags. But to answer your question, yeah, quarterback, familiarity, and I don't know Ridley enough. I know he wants to win. Everybody wants to win, but I know he wants to win. I just don't know if I'm going to put that on the top of his priority list. I think it's get paid.
Yeah.
I think it's familiarity. I think it's quarterback, which kind of is combination. And then I think it's win.
So you're not a guy that you can see him taking a pay cut to maybe go to Kansas City or somewhere to win a Super Bowl. Like money, I mean, he's made it clear, like money is obviously a motive, and as it should be.
Yeah, this is a guy that missed out on a year. He got a year paycheck, taken away. So I think that lost money makes a difference. I mean, he said when he came back, he's like, his motivation now is playing for his daughter, right? And, well, what does that mean? No, it's taking care of his family. That's taking care of the next couple of generations of his family. You got a chance to go make $16, $17, $18 million. I think that is part of the equation. That doesn't make him a bad person, by the way. It doesn't want to just play for $12 million and just to go win a Super Bowl with Kansas City. How many times in your life are you going to have a chance to make $17, $18 million or whatever the number ends up being? Mm-hmm. Would you take 11 or 12 instead? Hell, we would. But in that concept, where these guys, the money they make, getting as much as you can is probably paramount.
Well, and keep in mind, it's like I always say, sometimes that's what the money says.
Yeah.
And if a team offers you $18 million compared to $13 million, well, the money says that, hey, that team wants you a lot more than $5 million worth. So sometimes players, it can be simple in terms of money. It's like you want to go where the money is, but you also want to go where you feel needed, right? And that's where the money can come into play.
Well, okay, so now I like this because we're in the middle of – this is the kind of conversation that we hope the Jags are having. Brent Baalke is having with representatives or Ridley himself and his representatives. And this is the advantage they have. They can have some of these kind of conversations, build a relationship, put things in place, and then when the legal tampering starts on March 11th, then they can execute some of the things they want to. We want you to be here. Well, that's a good start, right?
Yeah.
And Baalke, to his credit, came out in the media. And while he got hammered for the Josh Allen part where we haven't talked to your representatives, he should be at least probably applauded a little bit for saying, we want him here. Like, we want Ridley. I mean, he basically reached out publicly and said, we want this to work out. But we know behind closed doors, they don't want to give up a second-round pick. What I don't know in this situation is how much does that ruffle the representation? Do they understand business is business? And, of course, they don't want to give up a second-round pick. And do they look at that as a negative, right? You talk about how you want to be here.
I mean,
like, if I'm doing business with you and your agent, and hey, Austin, if we do a deal right now, I want to give you X dollars, but you're going to cost us a third-round pick. If we wait, it's going to be a fourth-round pick. Do you and your representation look at that as saying, well, so you don't want me that bad, I guess?
And it's one thing if you're talking about a guy who's been here for a couple of years. right, who's been a staple in the community, who's been a staple for the franchise. Talking about a guy who you essentially rented for 1 year. Now you're asking him, hey, really want you, man. We want you to come back. Go ahead and do us this favor real quick. Just leave, but then we're going to bring you back in another capacity, but we don't want to spend a second-round pick on you. This is coming from a guy who was drafted in the first round, right? So if I'm Calvin Ridley, I'm like, so I'm not worth a second-round pick. Like, that's a conversation that's probably in his inner dialogue. It's like, wow, this team won't even spend a second-round pick to keep me? I think that comes into play a little bit. Every player's got some sort of ego, Brent. And if you mean to tell me it's like, hey, we value you, man. We really want you back. You're going to help Trevor Lawrence out. We think the best is yet to come. But, man, a second-round pick for you? We don't love you that much. That can be a hard pill to swallow.
How about this scenario then? Is it worth the Jags buying the second-round pick in essence? Yeah, so what I mean by it is this. All right, let's just say Calvin Ridley on the market, probably worth 16, 17. I think he's somewhere about 16, 17, $18 million. Let's just say it's 2 years, $33 million. That's the deal. At 30 years old, he's going to, whatever it is, guaranteed. Do the Jags say, hey, we're going to spend 2 years, 37, 2 years, 38. We're going to get you up to $18, $19 million a year if you come back with us, which in essence is they're overpaying what they probably would have paid, but they get to keep their second-round pick because they think it's valuable.
Yeah. Well, it is valuable.
Well, then it's maybe worth it to Ridley, right?
Yeah, maybe, because then Ridley's getting what he wants, right? He's getting the money that he wants. But once again, I mean, it's a big leap of faith to say, we need you to walk away from the team and give essentially your allegiance to us and then come back to said team. I mean, who's to say, they say, okay, Ridley, we'll let you go, but you come back. Well, then what happens if another team makes a play? And now it's like, hey, they're giving you 18? How about 19? We'll give you 19. And now you're getting in a bidding war with other teams, and then maybe you got to spend $20-something million on Calvin Ridley when that money could have went to T. Higgins.
Yeah, well, this is why I don't think the job's going to get done.
Sure. Yeah, well, there you go. Okay.
So, this is why I said from the
start. That was a long way around of just saying probably not going to happen.
No, but I do think that concept could be had. Like, if you really don't want to lose that second-round pick, then you can overpay a little bit. We just don't know where the dollars are at. How many teams are sincerely going to be interested in Ridley? But I bet a lot more would be interested at 16, 17 million. Less will be interested at 18, 19 million.
You'd think.
So when the phone starts ringing, legal tampering starts on Monday the 11th, and Ridley's agents fielding calls and like, hey, we want to do something like 2 years, $33 million. Like, yeah, that's not going to work. Click. Yeah, that's not going to work. Click. And there might be one or two teams like, really? Okay, well, we can maybe get up there, but we got to see. We'll check back with you tomorrow. Like that's maybe where the Jags have a way to overpay in this situation, which is what free agency is all about anyway, is overpaying. But they can have their cake and eat it too. They get that second-round pick. So we'll see if that's a risky part of this business right now for the Jags if they're one to go in here. Like I said it a couple weeks ago, this would be a heck of a pull if the Jags are able to keep the second-round pick and get Ridley. I think it's so unlikely. I think the chances are low. I think the fans believe that it can happen. I think we all can see how it could happen. There's a path for that. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't look like a path that the business world travels.
Yeah, I mean, once again, you're putting a lot of faith into a guy who's been here just for 1 year. Like I can see as if it was like Josh Allen, who said he wants to be here time and time again, who's been here for a couple of years, who's built up a rapport with this community. I can see that. It's hard to fathom a guy that you essentially had on a rental for 1 year to play ball so much for the fact of, hey, don't test free agency, but go ahead and go to the free agent pool, but then go ahead and jump back out of that pool and come back to us.
See what happens. It's going to be a busy week in Indianapolis to kind of get that ball rolling. I think this is where some of this stuff starts to materialize internally. Of course, we won't hear about it until the league year begins, or at least legal tampering in the week of March 11th.